So, in the spirit of camp sermons are a little more interactive. Don't worry, I'm not going to make anybody do anything uncomfortable or stress you out, but I may have you raise your hand here in just a second. And I want you to think of someone in your life, current, past, whatever, someone in your life that has had a great impact upon you, that has had a great impact upon the person you have become, a great impact on the decisions you've made or kind of shaped your life. And then, if you're willing, raise your hand if the person you thought of was someone that you actually know, that was actually in your life. And, okay, nobody, okay. So, I say that because we live in a society, we live in a world that's not who we point to. Okay, everybody from my generation and before, there was a line of commercials and advertisements for a really long time that said, be like Mike, right? Like, be like Michael Jordan. That made no sense. I'm horrible at basketball. Now, what they were trying to say was, have drive and have this and have this. And in so many ways, kind of as a society, we do that. We look at celebrities and we look at athletes and we look at, these great business leaders and this person who wrote this book or that book, and we kind of say, that's who you're supposed to emulate. That's who you're supposed to be like. But the reality is, the people who've impacted our lives, probably in the name of Christ, or probably influenced by Christ, aren't those the people that we want to try and be more like? Because as Paul would say, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ, a lot of the people we thought of had that impact on our lives because they were following the example of Christ. And so when we try and figure out, well, who do I want to be? And here's the thing, that's not a kid question. We tend to think it is. We think, the who do you want to be goes away when you become like 20. Okay, you got it all figured out now. No. Like, we are constantly seeking, well, who do I want to be in this stage of my life? Who do I want to be now? And who do I want to be a week from now? I think we should ask everyone, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why is that a kid question? I think adults need to kind of look ahead. Well, where do I see myself in 5 years? And so this morning, we'll jump around a little bit, but it'll be on the screen. But we're going to start in Mark chapter 10. Because this idea of being great that the world calls us to, they say, man, strive for success and strive for greatness. Great, but how do we describe that? What's that going to look like? And so James and John, they're representatives of us this morning. Okay, so James and John, 2 of the 12, going around with Jesus, come to him. And starting in verse 35, it says, James and John, the son of Zebedee, came to him and said, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. And can we just pause and recognize the guts on James and John? Okay, hey, we're pretty convinced at this point that you're the Messiah, that you're the Son of God, and we've got a question. And that question is, you don't even know what we're going to ask, but we want you to go ahead and, before we even ask, tell us you're going to give it to us. Has anybody's kid ever done that? Like, hey, I have a question, I just need you to say yes. No. But here's James and John, who just come up and say, we want you to do whatever we ask of you. Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? And they replied, let one of us sit at your right, the other at your left, in your glory. Because they're still thinking the way the world thinks about greatness. They've come to kind of understand who Jesus is. They've understood, man, this is the Messiah. Man, there's an opportunity for power here. There's an opportunity for greatness here. And so let's go ahead and get in on that. Now, in a moment, we're going to get to the fact that when 2 people out of 12 ask for something the other 10 don't get, that becomes a problem. But it's like when the one kid has recognized that there's one piece of pie left, and so they ask for it before dessert time. They try and get in early. But we do that. We struggle with what the world has told us is great. And so that's what we strive for. We kind of, even when it wrestles with the Christianness of our hearts, we still wrestle with that desire to, I kind of like being recognized, right? Like, I kind of like when somebody notices that I did a good job. I kind of enjoy that. And so we look for those opportunities, and maybe it's a wrestle inside of us, and maybe it's not, but we kind of enjoy that. Years ago, 8 years ago, some of our youth group learned that firsthand. So we were on our way to New Iberia, Louisiana for mission trip, which is actually where we will be a week from now, on our way down to New Iberia. The day before we were supposed to go, a hurricane hit New Iberia. People started wondering, okay, is the trip canceled? Do we not go? Because most of you are, I know you think we're Southern because we're in Dallas, but to those of us who grew up down in Houston, you guys are Northerners a little bit. And so we hear hurricane, not a big deal. It can be, don't get me wrong. But like my earliest memory as a 3-year-old was like Hurricane Alicia coming through and my dad going, "Oh, we're fine." So me and Wendy have literally slept through a hurricane before. It happens. And so I called down to the minister in New Iberia, and he's literally on the phone in his yard as the eye is passing over the house going, "No, it'll be fine by tomorrow, come on. Not a problem." And so we did. And so we loaded up and we went down. We hopefully alleviated the concerns that the roads aren't flooded. It's going to be safe. We're not going to do anything dangerous. And so we get down there, and we had some things planned for the trip, and some of those happened, but there was a hurricane. Man, that would have been a big one, but it was still a hurricane. And so there were some new things. Church of Christ Disaster Relief dropped off a 18-wheeler full of supplies at the church, and so we're unloading those and helping distribute those things. And they would get calls throughout the day from different nonprofits and different organizations saying, "Hey, do you have some bodies? We've got a thing going on." And so at one point in the day, they got a call and said, "Hey, we need like 4 guys to just meet us at this address." Okay, well, this address is a parking lot. And what happened is Walmart has decided we're donating 2 semi-trucks full of produce to be distributed among the community. We see semi-trucks on the street and we're like, "Wow, those are big." They're big, okay? Like what fits in a semi-truck is really, really big. And so we unload 2 semi-trucks full of produce into this parking lot. And you've got like, "Hey, your job is to man the peaches, and your job is to man the tomatoes." And so everybody's kind of standing next to these pallets of produce, and they've created a drive-through like store in this parking lot. Like 6 hours later, I've burned, peeled, burned again. There's no shade. I mean, it's just, we're just out there, okay? Stay with me. I'm getting somewhere. And we've been there about 6 hours. And it's hot. There's no shade. We're exhausted. And we look over, and these 2 cars pull up. At first, you just kind of notice out of the side yard because they're not going through the line. They park. And out gets a guy in very nicely pressed khakis and a jacket, which is immediately like, dude, it's like 100 degrees, and you have to part the air. Like, it's nuts. But he gets out, and it's him and some lady with a clipboard and some guy with a camera. And some of you know where this is going already. And he walks up to a kid who's been out there for 6 hours distributing produce. And he goes, I'll get the next one. And the car pulls up, and he picks up the box of peaches, and he goes to the car, and he goes. And they snap a photo, and he puts the box in, and goes and gets back in his car, and leaves. And guess what was in the newspaper the next day? The mayor of New Iberia helping hand out produce to all the people affected by the hurricane. And that's what our world sees. Our teenagers were like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Well, you just learned a very early lesson about politics, okay?" Because there's the story that one thing tells, you just got to see behind the curtain, okay? This is a lesson that you probably would not have learned till you're an adult, but hey, you learned it early. All of that said, He's not unique in that temptation. He's not unique in the temptation of, man, I kind of want people to think I'm great. And if that means I need to do this or I need to do this, there's a real temptation there. And we see that in James and John. That's what the world says. That makes sense to them. If he's the Messiah, if he's the one we've been expecting, then don't we want, isn't it natural to want to say, well, if you're going to lead, let us lead with you? Let us be second in command? That makes absolute sense to the world. But for us, as Christians, there are some things that we're going to have to understand. And some of us have gotten it, but I think like anything else in Christianity, it's something that we're constantly learning better, and we're understanding better. And that is that God's greatness is going to require some different things. For one, God's greatness is going to require a change in perspective. We can't view greatness the way the world views greatness. We can't pursue what the world tells us to pursue and think that that's going to make us great in the kingdom. Those two things very rarely match up. And in fact, very often, they're heading in complete opposite directions. And so we've got to ask ourselves, whose view of greatness, whose definition of greatness do I want to accept and do I want to pursue? Because if I want to pursue God's definition of greatness, I'm going to have to adjust from what the world keeps telling me. And so Jesus walks James and John through a few things. I don't know that you understand what you're asking for. And of course, like men, they said, of course I understand. Maybe not men, maybe all of us. We kind of do that. And so we get down to verse 41. And verse 41 is just there because we're reminded that these are real people. Okay, 41 exists just so we understand, like, this is not, like, every one of you can imagine a group of guys in this situation happening. And so verse 41, when the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Understandably. Hey, whoa, hold on. Why do you get to sit at Jesus' right? And now they're like, jockeying and arguing and kind of like, well, I should get to because, I've got better math skills than you. And I should get to because I did better on my AP scores. Which, parents, check in with your kids. They all got their AP scores yesterday. They may be doing great. They may not. But then Jesus says this. He called them all together. The lesson was not just for James and John. Aren't we thankful for the lessons we receive because somebody else messed up? In our home, we call it borrowed sense instead of bought sense. You didn't have to pay for it. You borrowed it because somebody else paid for it. And so I pray that we learn from those. And so Jesus doesn't just sit down James and John, he calls them all together. It says, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so Jesus tries to convince them, explain to them, help them see and understand that greatness means serving. Greatness means humility. In a world that tells us humility equals weakness, Jesus says, no, humility is what makes you great. But you've got to change the way you think. You've got to change everything you think this is. It's why so many of the Jewish people struggled with the idea of Jesus, because they pictured greatness as they imagined. Jesus came in full glory and greatness, but it wasn't what they expected. And so they missed it. So many of them missed it because it wasn't what they expected and thought. I think a lot of that is we see in Romans 12. I think that's what Paul understood when he says, don't conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Paul understood that it was going to require a mind renewal. We can't keep thinking the same thing and understand what God's trying to teach us. And aren't we glad that Jesus did so not just in words, but he did so by example? Jesus is able to say, follow my example. I'll show you what it looks like. John chapter 13, there's plenty of times that we could have grabbed of Jesus serving. This one stands out, of course. It was just after the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. Before I move on, let's not miss that verse. That before Jesus does what he's about to do, he is reminded that he has all authority. He has all power. Jesus was fully aware of any hierarchy that existed, of any order that existed to things. And what he's about to do, he does with full understanding of the power and authority that he has. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist, and after that he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. And when you understand culturally what was going on, you understand Peter's response. I know many of us have heard this, but what Jesus has taken on is the lowest job that he could. This was the job for the lowest servant of the house. Everywhere they go, they walk. You may be thinking like, oh, I need a pedicure. No, they walked everywhere. I just saw kids at camp. If they played gaga ball for 5 minutes, those feet are gross. So to a room full of men who've walked miles and miles in sandals, their feet is the grossest part of them. And what Jesus did was say, fully aware of all authority that I have and all power that I have, I will model for you what this looks like. And what this looks like is there is no amount of humility that is too great. There is no service that is too low or too demeaning for any of us. Peter understood, and Peter said, no, you're the Lord. I won't allow this. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part of me. Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Peter didn't quite get it, but he said, if this is what it looks like to be a part of you, then I relent and I allow it. Jesus would go on to say, now do what I have done for you. God's greatness requires sacrifice. God's greatness requires something of us. Maybe it's our time. Maybe it's our pride. Maybe it's our ego. Maybe it's our money. But service and greatness requires some level of sacrifice. It's going to cost us something. It's going to cost us something to live out what we've been called to live out. And again, aren't we glad that Jesus didn't just speak on it, but he lived it and he modeled it? And aren't we thankful for the people that we thought of at the very beginning that probably sacrificed something for you? That's why it stands out. That's why you thought of them. Because there was sacrifice. It costs something. We live in a world that tells us that all that matters is ourselves, and if somebody requires sacrifice, then that's just a burden. But God will say, no, help each other carry their burdens. Do it together. Help each other. See, we live in a world where people are told relationships are 50-50, and if you feel like one person's taking too much, then walk away. And there's a time for that, if that is the extent and the entirety of the relationship. But as any successful marriage knows, there's going to be times that it's 80-20. There's going to be times that it's 90-10. What you're looking for is the average to be as close to 50-50 as possible. But just because in this moment this person needs more from you than you need from them, that's not a concern. That's family. Are we willing to sacrifice for our brothers and sisters in Christ? Are we willing to sacrifice for the people that God cares about? James will talk about it like this in different words, but what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. We are really, really good as a society at belief, at least the word, because it's easy. I could say, raise your hand if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And we're in church, so most people are going to raise their hand. That part's easy. That took half a second. Maybe you bumped the person next to you and they're mad at you now, but it didn't cost a lot. And there's things about our faith, there's things about our Christian life that we're asked kind of those questions. And it's easy. Yeah, of course. It's like we call them in Bible class the VBS answer. We know what we're supposed to say. We've been around long enough. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now prove it, James would say. James would say, if you actually believe, then where's the evidence? Not that our evidence earns something, but that our works show that what we say we believe, we do believe. And so when we're serving each other and when we're trying to decide what our life is going to look like, what matters to us, what's most important, we start to understand that not just sacrifice, but God's greatness requires action. We actually have to do something and not just talk about it. It's easy to talk about. There's a Christian author who, not in one of his books, but talks about the idea that as a church, we do really good at understanding things. He said, if I tell my daughter, go clean your room, and I come back a week later and the room's not clean, and I say, hey, your room's not clean, and she goes, but I've been studying what it would look like if I cleaned my room. I had friends come over and we talked together about what it would look like if we all cleaned our rooms. I actually figured out how to say clean your room in Greek. But your room's not clean. And as Christians, I think sometimes we struggle because we do a really good job at understanding what God wants us to do. We don't always do a great job at doing what God wants us to do. And so when we're trying to decide what greatness looks like, when we're trying to decide, okay, how do I actually live this out? We actually have to do something. And that's hard. We're tired as a society. That's like the most common answer now. Like, hey, how's it going? I'm tired. Other than the fine that we normally, right? Like, how you doing? Fine. If they're actually willing to give you an answer, how you doing? I'm tired. Oh, okay. Why? Just tired, man. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people, you're tired, and you actually have a reason to be. Okay, don't get me wrong. It's not wrong to be tired. It's not a sin to be tired. I don't want to get that thrown off. Okay, but might step on some toes. I don't see anywhere in Scripture where Jesus says, "Go and do this," unless you're tired. So, even if the tired's real, we still got to do it, right? Like, we still got to love somebody on Friday at camp when I'm tired, and they're a lot of work. Not that that happens. We still have to be patient. We still have to serve. We still have to be Christ's emissaries and ambassadors in this world. No matter how we feel, no matter how our week went, no matter how much sleep we got last night. There's something I've always talked to my children about that I think may have helped. And I realize that it probably goes more than just children. When we've stayed up way too late, when I know because of the things we've done that day or that week, they're exhausted. And parents can see it. Parents can tell when they're done. And the last thing I tell them before we go to bed, before we read, before we do different things, I say, listen, as you go to bed, I need you to understand, when we wake up in the morning, you're tired. And when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be upset, for you to be grumpy, for you to be angry, for you to not really want to do the things you need to do to get ready for school or to get ready for what we're doing. So I'm telling you now so that you can kind of prepare for that. And wake up in the morning understanding, hey, I need to keep my emotions in check. I need to be aware and not let the tired speak. And I think there's a place for us, even as adults, to kind of go, you know what? I am tired. I am exhausted. But I need to make myself aware of that so that I can still do the things God's calling me to do. Jesus would say it like this in Matthew 18. There you go. It's fine. I have a Bible. It's okay. We're going to be okay. We'll get through it together. Matthew 18, verses 1 through 4. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? He sense a theme here. He called a little child and had him stand among them and said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And that's it in a nutshell. Are we striving for greatness as the world describes it? Or are we humbling ourselves and serving each other? Are we following Jesus' example? And maybe that's as simple as giving someone some time. Maybe that's as simple as recognizing a need around you and doing something about it. Greatness looks like a lot of different things. For me this week, greatness looked like Justin and Alyssa, Michael, Noah, Regina, Shayla, Brianna, Wendy, giving up their week, coming and serving at camp. Not always the funnest thing. I know we come back and camp's awesome and we love it and there's a lot to love about it. It's hard. It really is. It's a lot of work. It's hot. You don't sleep. It's stressful. They had to literally pay to do it. Like, they aren't getting paid to do it. They're literally having to pay to do it. That was greatness to me this week. It was Mitch driving down to help get people home yesterday. It was Bryant and Sonia, spending a 13 or 14 hour day last Sunday, driving the van down because I already had to be there, and driving the van so that the kids could get to camp. There's nothing in that for them. That's service. And for me, that's greatness. It's our Monday crew coming up here and sorting through clothes and other things. It's the mission committee doing all the things that they do to try and be good stewards of what has been given and to bless and to share the kingdom. It's Dennis and everything he does around this place that keeps this place going. It's Julie and all that she does for the children's hallway. And I'm stopping there because I'll try and list everybody and I'm going to miss somebody and I don't want to do that. I could list so many things. That's what greatness looks like. And I pray that when we start trying to decide what we're trying to emulate, other than Jesus, of course. Let's recognize those people who are living out Christ. And as Paul said, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. May we notice those people. And tonight, what I'm going to ask you to do if you come is we're just going to have some notes out. And I'm just going to encourage you, if you see greatness in somebody in this place because of the way that they love the Lord, I'm just going to encourage you to let them know that. We recognize it, we see it. I don't know that we always say it. And so we're going to spend a little time tonight doing that. But I pray that we strive for God's version of greatness instead of the world's, that we're willing to serve, we're willing to humble ourselves. Here in a moment, Bryant's going to come and he's going to lead us in a song, and we're all going to stand. And I just want you to know, whether you're a member, whether you're a guest, we're glad you're here. And we want to make sure that you are not leaving with any hurts that you came with, that you haven't given us the opportunity to help you carry that load. And so if you're hurting, whether that's a physical need, an emotional need, a spiritual need, here in a moment when we stand, we're going to invite you to come down and share that with us, that we can pray with you and for you. If you came this morning as someone who is ready to devote their lives to Christ, then we would rejoice in the opportunity to see you baptized into His kingdom. This is the time, this is the opportunity for us as a family to share the things that we have going on and to support and encourage one another.